Hi, I'm Skinny Cheeks. Today we'll be discussing the brand new class set for Sorcerers, Monolith of Storms. I'll cover the details of the set, show how it works, and then give my review and feedback on it. This will be one of the 7 new class sets to come from the Endless Archive, and like all the other sets, it will drop in every weight and every weapon type for a total of 36 pieces to pick up to fill out the whole collection. Each of the 7 sets have a pretty nice little effect to them whenever there is a 5-piece active, so you get the little purple glow here for the Sorcerer set. It does carry over through the outfit system as well, so you don't have to worry about losing the effect there when you change the outfit. For the set bonuses, we have crit chance, weapon and spell damage, and then for the 5-piece bonus, dealing damage with a storm calling ability's initial hit or every 5th tick creates a monolith near the enemy for 10 seconds up to 1 every 1 second. You can have up to 3 monoliths at a time. Monoliths link to your other monoliths within 28 meters of each other, each link dealing 680 shock damage, scaling off the higher of your weapon or spell damage every 2 seconds to enemies between and near them. An enemy can only take damage from the set once every 2 seconds. So the base damage from this set, assuming it could hit perfectly on cooldown every 2 seconds, is actually not that bad. Once you consider the Sorcerer's increase to shock damage, it is slightly higher than what you get from the proc of something like Whirl of the Depths. However, in testing, it definitely does not seem to reliably hit every 2 seconds, especially if you just have it front barred, because you might simply miss one of those ticks because of that weird trigger condition of it only proccing from initial hits and then also every 5th tick. It would probably be fine if it wasn't for the fact that the monolith itself does not deal damage. It only deals damage when you have 2 monoliths active or more and there is a tether between. It's also very erratic when and where these end up getting placed, especially if you're running Hurricane or Boundless Storm, since that skill follows you around. And are you really going to keep up with which exact tick you're on at each spot that you're standing in? It's just kind of a mess to properly place these things. And so this leads us into one of the big weaknesses of this set, how it synergizes with the skills that you need to activate it. So Mage's Fury is an execute ability, so you won't really be using that until the enemy has 20% health or less, so that won't reliably proc it. And even if it does, well, the idea of an execute is that the enemy is dying soon, so is that really somewhere you want the monolith anyways? It does work okay with the next 2 skills, Lightning Form and Lightning Splash, but as a Sorcerer, especially as a DPS, which is the role that it does seem like this set was designed for, our bar space is normally very limited, so having both Lightning Form and Lightning Splash is usually limited to more AoE focused setups in which there are just so many better options for gear to run on a Sorcerer. Even Stormcursed Revenge, this set is slept on a bit in general, but with the right setup on a Sorcerer, this thing can hit like a truck for AoE encounters, and Monolith of Storms won't even come close. Then the next skill in the line is Surge, and since that is a buff for you, it doesn't have any kind of interaction with the set at all. And then we have Bolt Escape. This can trigger the set if you use the Streak morph, since that one will deal damage. However, because of the 1 second cooldown on the set, you will have to streak 3 times to proc all 3 monoliths. So in general, the set just doesn't really seem to synergize with the skill line nearly as well as some of the other class sets do with theirs. And this would be okay, I guess, if the set hit like a truck and made it worth it to give up using other skills to keep it up reliably. But since you can sometimes miss ticks when it's only front barred and the general unimpressive DPS you get from it, it just leaves this set in a place where I don't know why I would use it. Comparing it to some other popular DPS options like Pillar of Nirn and Aegis Caller, Aegis does the most damage of the 3, but it does have the proc condition of requiring a critical strike from martial melee damage, which definitely limits the type of setups that can use this effectively. In fact, it doesn't even drop in bows and staves. So big damage here, but a little more limited compared to Pillar of Nirn, which was averaging about 1k DPS less for me, but it's way more versatile. It can proc from any type of damage, and now it has that crit line on the 2-piece instead of max stamina. So it's really good on all types of builds. So the balance between these two makes a lot of sense to me. One is slightly stronger but more niche. The other is still strong but can be used in all types of setups. But then we have Monolith of Storms. Not only is it limited, but it does the worst damage of the 3. On paper, it looks like it would be higher than Pillar of Nirn for DPS, but it simply doesn't deal damage as reliably, especially if you're front barring it, which both Pillar and Aegis can do without really losing any effectiveness from those sets. And those could also be backbarred even, whereas you can't really backbar Monolith. So it has all of these negatives, but no big payoff to make up for them. A lot of these annoyances with how the set works would probably be ignored if it did more damage, but as it is now, I don't see why I'd run it in any scenario over Pillar or Aegis. Now, personally, I would like to see the way the monoliths work adjusted to be a little more straightforward and reliable, but I also think they could maybe just leave the proc as it is and simply add in something else onto the 5-piece bonus. The Nightblade set was a nice example of including bonuses to affect the entire skill line, but the Sorc set just doesn't seem to line up as well. So I had a few ideas for potential 5-piece bonuses, stuff that I think would make the set overall a bit more interesting. I think a simple one would be reduces the cost and increases the damage of all storm calling skills by 5 to 10%, and this amount is pretty flexible depending on if this would be the only thing added onto it or maybe if some of these others would be added as well. And then since Surge was left without any interaction for the set, I thought it would be cool if they added Surge now also grants major savagery and prophecy, increasing your weapon and spell critical rating by 26-29. Could even do something like when the heal from Surge activates, grant these for X number of seconds. That way you could wear it as a front bar set as well with this skill going on your back bar. Because the hybridization system was never fully finalized, Stam Sorcs run into some weird issues with their crit chance because of that. Since they add in minor prophecy with their class passives, which increases spell crit, unless they're also giving themselves major prophecy, then they actually don't benefit from their passive here. And this is because the weapon power potions that are commonly run only offer major savagery, and this doesn't stack with minor prophecy. So I've actually found myself sometimes in raids running spell power potions on my Stam Sorc because this counteracts that and makes the minor prophecy and the major prophecy stack together. It makes sustain really weird, but there are some ways around it. You can also run something like Camo Hunter, but that only works on one bar, and bar space is super tight here for sorcerers. So I think it could be really cool to have Surge offer not just major brutality and sorcery, but also the major prophecy and savagery. End of the day, I'd really just rather see them finish hybridization though. Another idea here, and this is kind of going off what I saw a few people suggest to add onto this set. Mage's Fury's initial hit is increased by 200% to targets with over 20% health remaining. So this would effectively make it a spammable that's on par with jabs for pre-execute damage, but then it would go back to its normal execute form once that phase has begun. This would help out with bar space because you'd have your spammable and your execute stacked into one ability. And I think overall, a lot of people like the idea of having a lightning class spammable. And then finally, this last one here might be a little unhinged, but while Overload is slotted on both bars, it is renamed to Rerouted Overload. It is now always active and no longer drains ultimate. While in combat, you're always under the effects of concussion and minor mangle, increasing your damage taken by 5% and reducing your health by 10%. This one might be a little strong, especially in combo with some of these others, but I thought it seemed like it could be cool given the trade-offs of no longer having another ultimate and having some debuffs applied to yourself. So I'm not saying add all of these onto the same set, but really some combo of these or something like them, something in a similar vein added to the set in addition to the monoliths, or hell, even removing the monoliths altogether and just adding in a variety of bonuses like these. It seems like that would make the set a lot more useful and interesting than it currently is. But as a very generic proc set that doesn't do anything special damage-wise and also limits your flexibility with skill usage, I just don't see this one being popular for anything other than roleplay purposes. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you all think about the new Sorcerer class set. Big shout out to my current Patreon supporters and YouTube members. The contributions help a ton to keep the website and YouTube channel going. And a special thanks to Nicholas, Simon, Cougars Bay and the Cougar City Guild, the Order of War Guild, Cantankerous Cat, Shady, Iffy, Blake1816, Mordecai1212, Santanico, Vidridi, Florian, Phoenix, Nalandia, Unemployed, Cresceliana, Cha-Cha, Technical KO, Cap, Danco77, and Pletpron. Thanks again and see you later. Bye.